whoever in our government leaked that information is guilty of treason. And I think anything less than execution is too kind a penalty.
That's Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor, former presidential candidate, I'm sure future presidential candidate, whether he'll admit it or not, saying that Private Manning should be executed, which we have been calling for quite some time.
Today, Mike Huckabee is the host of the very popular talk show Huckabee on the Fox News Channel, Huckabee Report on the radio, also the chairman of HuckPAC, a grassroots conservative organization, and he's got a couple of terrific-sounding books out right now. Mike Huckabee joins us. Howdy, Mike. How are you?
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Hey, it's nice to talk to you again. How you been?
Well, I have been doing well. I'm in California and running up the coast, signing copies of two Christmas books that I have. One's called A Simple Christmas. And I'll tell you what, it's such an influential book that Michelle Obama has now said that the theme of the White House Christmas is going to be simple gifts.
Wow, it's you've crossed the partisan divide there.
But this is not the way you run for president, putting out some sort of happy Christmas book. You got to have a book that's about policy in your life and your vision for America.
Well, I wanted to be as politically incorrect as possible, and I couldn't think of anything that would more irritate people on the far left than to wish them a Merry Christmas. Christmas books.
You know,
there's a children's book, by the way, called Can't Wait Till Christmas. And it is a children's book so simple that even members of Congress will be able to understand it. So I think it's very political in that regard.
You know, well played. The books, I've actually been clicking around and are getting tremendous reviews and look absolutely wonderful. And we do want to talk about them. But first, we gotta ask you about the Bradley Manning leaker thing. We've been saying from the beginning that this is absolutely treasonous. You know, WikiLeaks, that's a little more complicated. What can we ask of them? How can we punish them? What are their responsibilities? But a member of the armed forces doing this to his country, this is treasonous.
Well, I've been amazed at the unbelievable reaction that the bloggers have lit up because I said what I did, but it was in really reference to the Espionage Act of 1917, which very clearly outlines that one of the penalties that is very legitimate for someone who aids, abets, and comforts the enemy is punishable by death. This is exactly what this is. When a person, and let's separate that what WikiLeaks did is to take information they got and publish it. That's irresponsible. I don't know that it's criminal, but it's irresponsible. When the New York Times published it, that's not criminal. We can't punish the New York Times, but they're just showing their reckless disregard for the safety of a lot of Americans and for our policies across the world. But when a member of the military who takes an oath and says, if I'm given top security clearance, I will not reveal. And when I was a governor, I had top security clearance, had to go through an FBI check. I had to swear by affidavit that I would not disclose things that I would learn as a result of national security issues that were related to Homeland Security. I understood full well that I had a responsibility and that I had sworn under oath that I wouldn't disclose it. So did Bradley Manning. Mm-hmm. And for him to release that information knowing full well that he was helping the very people who want to kill Americans, I just found, what else do you call that?
Not to mention the fact that I think it would be definitely be a deterrent for anybody who was thinking about doing this in the future.
Yeah, I'd think twice about saying I was listening to Lady Gaga if he was going to kill me, not that listening to Lady Gaga might not kill me anyway.
Yeah, amen. Hey, one more WikiLeaks question. What of the revelations that you've seen, which have struck you as the most notable?
I think the most notable is that it confirms what we deep down knew all along, and that is that the Saudis and other countries in the Middle East really don't want Iran to have nuclear power. Mm-hmm. And they would love for Israel to go and do the dirty work for them, and then they would feign their outrage, but deep down they would be jumping up and down inside their palaces, thanking God that the Israelis actually had the cojones to take out the Iranian nuclear capacity.
Mike Huckabee is on the line. You know who he is. We won't bother. You know, we heard you were pitching these books, and we thought, okay, great, we'll ask you about the books. But I'm clicking around looking at this. Here's the first line, Jack, from the from the editorial review on Amazon. Christmas has become synonymous with shopping, overindulging, and stress. But according to Mike Huckabee, that was never God's intention. I think this is a timely book.
Well, this book is especially timely, the book A Simple Christmas, because we're in a downturn economy, and a lot of people are just frantic. They're thinking, we can't have this great Christmas this year because we don't have the money. Many people don't have jobs, and they're really struggling. And I think one of the things that this book does is causes people to step back and say, you know what, Christmas isn't about the stuff. It's not about the expense of the gifts, or the extravagance of the meal. It's about relationships. And in the stories that I weave in this book, what has been so fulfilling to me is that people come up after having read it, and they tell me not so much, hey, I read your stories. They say, this made me remember mine. And I have had such an incredible joy out of getting that kind of response, because it's exactly what I wanted it to do, is to cause people to just take a deep breath, step back and remember that if they went back to Bethlehem and saw the first Christmas, from an outward perspective, it looked like an unmitigated disaster, a total wreck. Nothing went right. I mean, this is not the clean, sanitized version that we've seen in the church pageants. The real Bethlehem was a 14-year-old unmarried girl away from home and family, goes into labor, ends up having to give birth among the squalor of where a bunch of animals were living and doing what animals do. Look, this was a normal birth. This was no silent night. She was probably screaming her head off, and all she had to comfort her was some cows, goats, sheep, and a 16-year-old scraggly boy who was probably scared to death at what he was seeing, because it's not something he'd probably ever seen before.
Mike Huckabee's on the line. I love the story you tell about how you and your sister would sneak your gifts open before Christmas. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, man. Well, that's the theme of the children's book, Can't Wait Till Christmas. And it's a true story. My sister and I used to grab the packages from under the tree while our parents were at work, and we'd unwrap them, we'd play with our stuff, and then before they would get home, we would carefully wrap them back, put them under the tree, and then on Christmas morning, we would give these Oscar-winning performances as if we had never imagine what they could have gotten for us.
And is that the sort of person we want as a president? Are you going to run for president?
Well, I don't know, but if I did, just remember the incredible capacity I have for intelligence and espionage. You don't even have to train me.
But how'd you get found out?
Well, the Christmas morning, we did this for several years and did it pretty successfully, but one Christmas morning, I opened up a package that contained my J.C. Higgins football from Sears, and old people will remember those brands. And I forgot that when we hurriedly wrapped it up, because we were kind of running short on time, I forgot to clean it up. So I pulled out this football that had mud all over it, and my dad took a look at it, and the gig was up. And
brand new ball covered in mud.
Oh, man. It's like,
very nice.
I tried to convince him that Sears sent it that way so it would have some authenticity, but didn't buy that.
I don't know about that brand of football. I was telling my wife the other day, we had a football and a basketball that were really cheap ones, and so when you inflated them, they got way bigger than they were supposed to be over time. And so I never knew what size it was supposed to be. It was like way, way bigger than it was.
You could kick it for 17 blocks down.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a balloon.
Yeah. Boy, I love the thought of reminding people of their own Christmas stories.
Well, I think sometimes we really do forget the greatest memories of our life. And frankly, some of them are good and some of them are not. But they tend to revolve around Christmas as being that navigation point. I mean, how many of us haven't said, boy, this is the first Christmas we've had since Dad died, or this is the first Christmas, that we've had, since we've been married, or since the baby came. All of the big events of our life, we tend to judge, and we even tend to put in the frame of reference of one Christmas to the next. And so the book A Simple Christmas is written from that standpoint, how that as each Christmas rolls around, we tend to reflect back on what the year's been like. And as we look ahead, we tend to think about getting to the next Christmas. I'll give an example. When my wife and I had only been married a year, she was diagnosed with cancer in her spine, and quite frankly, that was shocking. I mean, we were 20 years old and newlyweds, and just totally stunned by the news. It's not what you expect when you're 20 years old and just married. And so when we got to the Christmas of 1975, quite frankly, that was the Christmas we never thought we would have. And the doctors had told us originally that we probably wouldn't see it. So that Christmas had maybe one of the most wonderful meanings ever, but by the time we got there, we were so broke from all the hassles we'd been through with medical expenses and everything else. We had nothing for Christmas for each other. It was the leanest Christmas we've ever had, but it maybe was the best one we ever had, because we found out that, this isn't about the stuff. My gosh, we just got here. Just to be able to say we made it this far was an incredible day. So that's why I think that the timeliness of the book, even though it was at the time not necessarily intended to be such a timely message, but I think it'll be a great inspiration and real strength for a lot of families out there.
Two very nice messages today, Mike Huckabee. One, that, and the other message being, of course, execute traitors. So,
kill traitors and then have peace on earth, goodwill.
There you go.
Perfect. Exactly. You know, Mike, we love you. You're a heck of an interesting guy. In the next 20 seconds, what's Mike Huckabee's future?
I am obviously contemplating whether I'll run again for the presidency, but that's a tough decision, and it's not one I'm going to make quickly or suddenly or impulsively. And so right now, I'll just continue to do what I'm doing and having a great time doing it.
I say go ahead and run.
You think that's it?
I was trying to make up his mind for him.
There you go.
All right, Mike Huckabee. The books are A Simple Christmas, 12 stories that celebrate the true holiday spirit, and can't wait till Christmas. Mike, thanks.
Thank you a bunch. Merry Christmas.
All right, well, and we'll link up the information on his book signings in the area for you at ArmstrongandGettyRadio.com.
He'll run, as they say, running for president's like having sex. You don't do it once and think, that's all right, and never do it again. Stay with us. You're listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show.